Okay, so go ahead and introduce yourself.
My name is Kyler Jeffroy. I am a senior at the University of Texas, working at my current job for about a little under a year. I am a news writer for a national LGBT news site. So I report on any news that has any relevance to the lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender community. So I work with about 4 to 5 other writers that are stationed all across this nation. And so I actually work by myself in my own room, but I'm collaborating with all these other writers. So we have like a job board online,
Okay.
and we're writing up different stories about news leads, or if we hear about a story, we'll go investigate it and then report on it. So all my coworkers are gay men because it's a gay news site. But I don't have any face-to-face interaction with them outside of like Skype.
Okay. Interesting. Has there been any news on discrimination in the workplace?
There has been. A lot of it is actually political. So there's bills going on right now trying to prevent workplace discrimination on the basis of sexual orientation. That is kind of like working its way through Congress. So I've been reporting on that right now. Specific cases of discrimination are also get reported, like if someone gets refused at like the other day there was a transgender woman who was refused in North Texas access to a Salvation Army shelter just because she was transgender. So we got to report on that story.
So have you ever done any other work besides this blog?
I used to work in the Texas House of Representatives as a legislative aide. And last year I lived in DC and I worked with an advocacy group that works on things like immigration reform and gun violence prevention and marriage equality.
How do you think they handle discrimination within the government? Did you ever feel discriminated, or did you ever witness it?
So I never witnessed it. I worked in a really supportive office environment. My boss was actually gay. So I knew, like, as soon as going into it, like, he would always talk about his boyfriend, so I knew I was completely free to, like, even though I didn't have a boyfriend, be open about myself and, you know, anything, and be able to talk about issues. But I know some other less welcoming offices, like, have policy stipulations that they're like, we don't hire gay people, because it is actually legal to not hire someone based on their sexual orientation in Texas. It's completely legal. So there were offices that were actively discriminating.
Wow. A lot of studying done on sexual discrimination. There's like a low amount of people that will admit to it happening. Why do you think that is?
I think part of it could probably be that sexual orientation is still sort of a stigmatized category, and so a lot of people aren't out, for one thing, so they're not going to report on if they're getting discriminated against. And it's an issue that's hard to, like, define and easily categorize. You know, like, if you see an African American, you know they're black. You know, you can't always tell if someone's gay or straight or what their sexual orientation is. So I think that could play into, like, why studies are lacking in that field, just because it's an issue that's hard to define, and then people a lot of times don't want to define it for themselves because it's a private matter.
Other types of discrimination, how do you think that plays into your job? Do you feel like there's a lot of...
I don't know if I would say it plays into my current job, just because most of our stories have a gay slant to them. So we take any stories, you know, so if it's a story about a white gay man experiencing discrimination, we'll report on it, and if it's a black gay man experiencing discrimination, we'll report on that too. I wouldn't say I've seen any bias in terms of the type of coverage we offer. If there's a gay slant to it, we'll usually cover it regardless of any other issue.
But so in your previous jobs, did you ever witness any racial or gender bias happening? I just want to see where sexual orientation lies in the realm of things.
Well, so the representative I worked for was black, and actually the entire office was either black or Hispanic except for me. So that was an interesting dynamic, just because I grew up in a like 98% white like district. In my high school, there was like maybe 2 black people in the entire school. So like the first job I ever had was up here, and suddenly I was the minority. So it was just an interesting dynamic to be able to see that happen, because it had been nothing I'd ever experienced before. But I wouldn't say there was any discrimination in that office based on race, and then our chief of staff is a black woman, so like clearly there, like my boss's boss was an African American woman. At the advocacy organization I worked for, there were interracial couples in the office.
Okay.
So I've worked in a lot of like really progressive like work environments that embrace diversity, so I've been lucky.
Well, thank you. I really appreciate hearing the other side of things. For real.